Flood, what's up, man?
Just having technical difficulties. That's all.
What's up, man? Hey, this is my buddy from Ball State, Bradley Brookhart, and Bradley, I met Flood when I was at Wisconsin lacrosse. So
okay.
Anyway, it just so happened that
excellent
Flood was able to hop in at the same time as you today, and like we just hang out and chat for a little bit, and we'll
Sounds
just
good.
Record everything.
Nice to meet you, Coach.
Hey, you too.
And Bradley was out at were you at William and Mary, or I can't remember. Okay.
Yeah, I was at William and Mary for 6 years.
Did you just get tired of the college grind?
It was strange. It was probably within a few days of my daughter being born, my mindset just completely changed. Yep. And I stayed on. My daughter was born in July, and she was born about 2.5 months early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's doing great. No issues or anything. But, I luckily she was born over the summer. We weren't super busy over the summer. We had football and basketball, and that was about it. But once we started back up, my whole thought process changed, what I wanted to do. And instead of working 60 hours a week, yada, yada. And then we did have some changes. We got a new athletic director, and then, some other things started to change, which I wasn't like upset about or anything, but it was just another reason to be like, you know what, let's look into something else. Let's see if there's another way to kind of make this work. So, yeah, it's been great though.
Cool, man. How long have you been running your own business?
It'll be 2 years in February.
Okay. Nice. 2
years in February. Still growing it. Still want to try to get a lot more clients. I want to say a lot. Well, yeah, I want to get a lot, but I want to grow it. But obviously, be able to spend time with my daughter as much as I can. My wife, when she's home, she's an ICU nurse, so she's working quite a bit these days. But man, life is pretty good though.
Good, man.
And what kind of clients do you have?
It ranges from some of my friends to 40 and 50-year-olds and a couple of high school kids trying to do sports, baseball, football. So it's a little bit of everybody, which is great because it challenges me, especially being in the college setting for so long. I used to work with athletes, but especially the older clientele where they have a lot more, their injury history may even be, longer than, a freshman or sophomore coming out of high school, even though they may have had 2 torn ACLs, a shoulder injury. It's quite challenging to work with people, general population, if you will, and people who, they just have different needs. Their histories are so much different than college kids.
Yeah. So Flood recently got back into strength and conditioning at Cameron, right? So, yeah. How old's your kiddo now?
Just turned 8 weeks Saturday.
Nice. All right.
Wow.
So has that affected your thought process at all? Has anything changed for you, or are you still?
So he was born August 8th. The semester started on the 17th, and we actually weren't going to start training until the 31st. So we kind of said, hey, bring the kids back, but we don't know what they're going to come back with. So let's hold off for 14 days and figure that out. We'll move on from there. I remember the first week, actually, Travis, I think I texted you and I said, I don't want to go back to work. I really love being a strength coach, but when you hold your own child in your arms, you're like, work doesn't really matter, and it's crazy because only a few years before that, I had told my wife, listen, I think I want to be a dad, but my athletes are my kids, I don't know when I'll be ready. And then all of a sudden it's changes real quick.
Yep. Yeah, man. So Bradley, are you working with people in person at all, or is it strictly online?
Everything for me right now is online.
Nice.
Which, proposes a lot of its own challenges.
Yeah.
That one, the biggest one being communication.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not sitting there, I'm not able to correct them, coach them on their, form. And if they're doing it right, it's just trying to get we can do Zoom and things like that, which is awesome. But I try to have them even send me videos of themselves doing exercises when possible, just so I can be able to see them move.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to evaluate somebody if you're not there with them.
Yeah.
Evaluating them and communicating with them, having them understand, providing me with as much detail as possible is what's going to make our relationship work.
Yep.
If they're not going to break down every single thing, how, is the warm up going? Is it easy? Is it hard? Are you tired of it? Is it boring? To, the first exercise, break down each set for me. Is it easy? Is it hard? How much weight you doing? The more feedback I get, the more you can help them. But if they're not willing to work with you on that, it can be very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's a small handful of people I work with online as well, and it's strictly remote. And it really does come down to communication, and they have to send me videos quite a bit. And then one thing that's changed for me, I mean, these folks I've worked with for a while, so they understand movement patterns and that kind of thing. But the progressions are different when you're completely online,
Mm-hmm.
Because when they are strictly working with you remotely, you might have to, hey, we're going to do a goblet squat first, and I'm going to have to make sure that goblet squat looks okay before we can even talk about a front rack squat or back squat or whatever.
Yeah.
So you finding anything like that?
Absolutely. And especially when their equipment is limited. Some of the people I work with, they don't go to a gym. So everything is at home. So they may not have anything. So I may have to just be creative and try to find stuff around the house. Stairs for one is a big one. Just do some step ups, or some box jumps, but jump up onto your steps if you have a flat landing that you're able to do that on. So finding progressions in that regard when they don't have any weight to progress to is very hard.
So when I was whenever I was in quarantine, we're doing bodyweight workouts, and that was what I got sick of the most. Is I liked it at first, but at a certain point, you're like, I can only do so much, with like household items and a full laundry basket, like gallon jugs, and at some point you're like, I need more weight to progress or whatever. So I applaud you for being as creative as you can and helping people continue to progress even while they don't have much,
It's hard to do.
Man, I sent, there's one guy that I'm working with. I sent him a block of training, or he's fortunately able to get into a gym right now. Another lady I'm working with, she has like a little gym at her house. And anyway, their block progression was 1.5 reps on all of their compound movements. So it was a nice progression because, again, going back to if what you have is limited, how can we make this harder and still get an adaptation? And I got a lot of cursing out sent back in our communication tool and whatnot. But overall, it's a matter of just being creative and, okay, how can we get a new stimulus without adding anything else? So
one of the things I try to incorporate is lots of pause reps, eccentric movement, and just isometrics, just to challenge them, do something different. Maybe the same movement. You maybe still be doing a bodyweight squat, but let's go down and pause at the bottom for 3 seconds before you come back up. That set of 10 is going to be much more difficult than it was if you're just doing 10 bodyweight squats.
Right.
So just trying to be, change the tempo of the movements to adjust the difficulty level.
Now, Flood, how about you, man? I mean, what's your layout look like, and how are you working around space limitations and equipment limitations and things like that?
So it's kind of been a progression of different thought processes. At first, we were going to treat everybody as each team as a family, and so it was kind of like they're going to be around each other in practice and in the locker room and whatever. So like, whatever, it's as long as there's not multiple groups at the same time, there's not really any capacity
limits. The issue was then, let's say there's 24 people in the weight room, then the strength coach is potentially, exposed to 24 different people. There's not really a whole lot of room. There's not a lot of ventilation, stuff like that. So I ended up saying, hey, let's try and do groups of like 8 to 10. So we have 8 racks in our weight room. It's not a very wide weight room though. And so like you can fit 8 racks, but like then there's only maybe like 10 feet in front of your rack before the wall hits. So I said, hey, let's try and have smaller groups. We'll try and train outside as much as possible. We'll move our dumbbells outside and whatever we can. And then we'll go from there. That turned into, I don't know, probably 3 weeks ago, we went from like 3 cases to 18 cases or something like that in a matter of a week and a half or something like that. And so we decided that everybody has to wear masks while they're training. But the positive with that was we still stayed with that 8 to 10, but now we were able to come inside a little bit more and use racks, just not have to lug your weight outside to lug it all the way back in. And if you pick the wrong dumbbells, like, sorry, you got to struggle through it, or like they're just too light, whatever else. So now we're back to a pretty traditional training look with wearing masks, and just telling people like, hey, if you need to take a little bit more rest time in between a set or something like that, that's fine, but you got to keep your mask on. So the nice thing though is, with certain teams, it's been good. Other teams haven't been so great. It kind of depends on how their sport coach handles it at practice. And if their sport coach is on it, then they're fine. Obviously, like we talked, I've got a little one. I've got one person on my staff who has some potential health issues, like nothing there, but like the immune system isn't great. Mm-hmm. And so I just said, hey, like they get one warning, and the second warning, you kick them out for that strength session. And we don't want to do that, but that's how we're going to do it. And I said, you guys can remind each other all you want. So if you see somebody and you're saying, oh, hey, like pull it up over your nose, like that's fine. But I don't want to have to remind you all the time. That's not my job, not to police, you wearing a mask correctly. Like my job is to train you. And if you can't listen to how I'm telling you to do that, then sorry, Mm-hmm. So for the most part, it's been pretty good, especially after we said that. We'll see how that goes. But again, the nice thing is that we can actually train better, I think, because we're inside. So
right. Gotcha. So how's and Bradley, what about you, man? How's everybody you're working with? Have you had anybody had any issues, or everybody remaining relatively healthy for the most part, or how's that looking for you?
Everybody's been relatively healthy, at least that they've told me. Mm-hmm. A couple people have ventured back into the gym. Some people are still at home. Obviously, some of the kids I work with, they're remote learning. Yeah. So, they're not having too much interaction. But luckily, things have been pretty good. I haven't had to worry about anything, and that's at least especially from online coaching. I don't have a weight room. I have to disinfect after every group, and I don't have to. I'm sure that's I talked to a lot of former colleagues and stuff who are still in the college setting. They're just like, they've transitioned to having the athletes do it themselves, because they're like, otherwise we just 3 people to clean an entire weight room, or 1 or 2, depending on how many coaches you got, for 10, 15 minutes in between every session. That adds up. That's a lot of time. Yep. So I they have a lot of athletes do it, and luckily that's one thing I don't have. I don't have like a gym or anything that I, coach people at. So there's a lot less I have to worry about, from an online coaching standpoint. But still just be mindful. The people that do want to go back to the gym, feel free and do so. That is your own choice. I'll design whatever program you want based upon your needs. Just be smart. Just be smart about it. Yeah, a lot of gyms are probably fine, but just be responsible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this whole thing has definitely made people a lot more aware, a lot more cognizant of, how gross we are as like a species, like people just
hopefully people started to learn how to wash their hands again.
And they, dude, you'll see people just sneeze. It's like, cover your face, man. Like,
yeah.
So I had a kid the other day walk into my office, first of all, and that bugged me. So instead of like being at the door, like walked all the way in and then was at like my, like where I have a bunch of different stuff. And he was like, "Hey, can I use these Kleenex?" And I was like, so the proper way to do that is to ask from the door, "Hey, coach, do you have any Kleenex?" or something like that. And then I could tell you. So then he proceeds to blow his nose and this is just pet peeve, throws it in my own trash as opposed to the weight room trash. And I was like I didn't tell him this, but I'm like, dude, I'm breathing the air in here. I don't really like, anyway, that was one thing. And then proceeds to just go to the warm up and like start it. And I was like, no. Go to the bathroom, wash your hands. That's one of the things that even before COVID you should have done anyway. But now especially, you need like, So then another thing you can talk about how gross we are and stuff was like, we really like the way you drink a water bottle during your workout. You really need to be thinking about how you touch where your mouth is going.
Yeah.
Because you're touching all of these things that even if you clean them in between, they're still pretty dirty.
Yeah.
Your hands are touching the floor and they're touching all these things. And like, make sure that whatever you touch ideally doesn't go into your mouth. Let's try not to be a child here. So, I don't know.
Yeah, man, I saw a video.
Now, we actually bought a disinfectant, and apparently, so it doesn't have to get wiped down, but it has to take like 10 minutes to dry to disinfect. And so what we've been doing is just instead of how normally college setting, it's like hour blocks. So we got a 6 o'clock group, 7 o'clock group, 8 o'clock group. We've been keeping that same model, but they only have 45 minutes in the weight room. And then we take, as much time as we can to clean real quick. We try and hit wherever we're going to warm up first, and then we'll hit the racks after. So then, it's been 10 minutes basically by the time that they go onto whatever equipment they're using. It's kind of clean and dried already. But it's definitely been a hassle. So it's nuts. But I'm kind of lucky that we only have 8 racks, and not a ton of equipment. So that way it takes pretty close to 15 minutes, but at least we can get it done. So
I feel, even though that's a hassle, that I hope something like this, not just in the strength and conditioning setting, continues, but just almost everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just for example, like all the grocery stores around here, they have somebody out front, disinfecting the carts and everything, wipe them down. Let's continue that forever.
Yeah.
Like, especially like the flu season, like anytime. The grocery carts are disgusting. They're dirty,
Mm-hmm.
Let's clean them. Let's keep things cleaner.
Yeah.
To some extent. Now, I mean, obviously, the extent we're doing now may be a lot, but, I had to beg kids to wipe down their benches and stuff when they were done with them. It's like, do you just sweat all over that bench? I'm not laying on that bench. I don't want another athlete to lay on that bench. Just give it a little wipe down. Just let's clean it up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to spray the whole rack, but let's just get the bench. Okay.
That's half the reason I don't use benches, man. Just say like, you guys are gross, man. Like,
So, you think about like, so we're trying to prevent COVID, but then you're right. There's the flu, there's MRSA, like there's so many different things that you're like, oh crap. Like my weight room is hopefully safe, but like there's so many things that people could get, So,
I'm not saying it's a petri dish, but we're trying to prevent it from becoming a petri dish.
Right. And that, and that's where it's like the athletes are whatever. I'm like, okay, hold on. But you think you're the only one who works out on that bench. You didn't see the other people who sweat as much as you did before you did, like,
I'll be right back.
Or, okay. So I actually saw one time they were tracing like a case of MRSA or staph, like a bunch of people were getting it like on top of their calves almost, like by their knee. And they're like, like, what is that? And they tried to figure out where it was. And it was on a sitting hamstring curl. Somebody wasn't cleaning like where your knee bends.
Yeah.
And it was, just something simple like that they thought that they were getting where you're sitting. But like,
unless you're wearing really short shorts, I mean, that's not a whole lot of skin contact. But, whether your knee touches where it's contracting, then it is.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, my boss, when I was at William Mary, he had numerous cases before I even got there, as an issue. And one of his rules was, no sleeveless shirts in the weight room for anybody. No team was allowed to have, everybody had to wear a sleeve shirt though. So even when you're laying on a bench, you're not having that skin contact near your shoulder. But, somehow we still had somebody get some MRSA on their upper arm, and it was a disaster.
Right.
It's a disaster. But that's one of the things I adopt. I even don't like to wear sleeveless shirts when I'm using other people's equipment. If I'm doing body weight exercises at home or something, sure, I'm in my own home. But if I was at a gym or anything, I'm going to wear a sleeve shirt, even if it's just an arm pump,
Right. Yeah.
Most people want to get the sleeveless shirt, show the guns off. I get it. They'll still grow with sleeves. They'll still grow.
You're right. Absolutely. And, I think when you get used to wearing sleeves, watching people who don't wear sleeves, like for some reason, like it doesn't seem that classy. Like I get it, right? Like it's cool to see your arms, but for some reason in my head, like you're cooler if you can see a pump through your sleeves than if you have to not wear sleeves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like same thing with wearing sweatpants.
Yeah.
Like if you can see how big your legs are wearing sweatpants, then you got big legs.
Yeah. If you're filling out your shirt, you're doing good.
Right.
If your shirt has a lot of room, you don't need to take it off while you're working out. you got some ways to go. You're okay.
We talking about the skinny guys who think they're huge?
Well, we started talking about skin contact in the weight room, MRSA cleaning and things like that. And then we got to talking about arm pumps and skinny people. And yeah. We got off topic a little bit.
Talking about filling out stuff. So my mom bought me these extra large sweatpants for Christmas one year. And I'm pretty sure they're like skinny jeans sweatpants.
Joggers.
No, they go all the way down to my ankle. The problem is my calves are a decent size and they fit my legs, which also I feel like are a decent size, but they're very tight on my calves. And I don't know if I can wear them in public without people being like, "Oh, you're trying to show off your calves?" I'm like, not really. I'm just wearing these sweatpants my mom bought me, but whatever, I guess.
Calves are the biceps of the legs now.
Right?
No, they always have been.
That's why I wear sweats so much, man, so I can cover them up, But
hey, man, when you're at the beach, your legs, you see the calves.
What was that thing?
Nice calves.
What was that thing that was it White? Like, was it Jim White that said something like, "What's more important, like forearms or calves on the strength coach?" And it was like the forearms are more important because you can cover up the calves. It's something like that.
I don't think I ever heard that, but I
can't remember if it's Jim or not, but I don't know. It came through in the weight room at some point, so probably a good debate there.
I went into a store one time, and this dude was like, "Man, how do you get big calves?" And I was like, I mean, I think I've just been born with them.
Yeah.
Like, pretty sure when I was 5, my dad would be like, "Hey, neighbor guy, come over and look at my kid's calves." Weird that probably is. Like, there's a good football player. Little did I know that those big calves mean, hey, he's going to be strong and slow.
Yeah, man, because you look at like any NBA guy or any basketball player. When have you ever seen those guys with like a jacked set of calves?
I would say they're more ripped.
It's a lot of and then a calf. Yeah, right.
But
they don't have size. They don't have bulk.
No, right. It's just like straight up.
Mm-hmm.
But like, is there
high jumpers? Same thing.
Right. So like, is there a predictor of what this person's going to be good at without really testing them? Is there anything you can tell by just looking at them? But I don't know. What do you do
This
for
is just a
evals?
guess. I would say if you have like really big calves, really big lower legs, I'm guessing maybe shot put or discus. You'd probably be pretty good at.
Flood, you any good at shot put or discus?
If you practice it, you got to practice it and train for it, of course. But
I mean, I would love to get into the Highland games. I know that's not the same. But
you would be good. Cool. I could see that. I could see you doing that. Because you're so Bradley, Flood, you cheered in college, right?
Yep.
So you're good at throwing, throwing people into the air. So I mean, you're not too far off, right?
Well, I mean, throwing people, I'm doing backflips, stuff like that. Like, I think 3 weeks ago, I checked. I still can do a backflip, so that's cool.
Wow.
So how do you check that? Like, what happens if you fail? Like, you just kind of like break your skull a little bit, or what? How do you fail on that?
So here's how it works. When I'm out of shape, I don't check. When I get back into shape, I feel like, okay, so I'm lean enough, I'm strong enough, like I know that I can do this. It might be kind of ugly, but like I can land. Yeah. That's when I go.
Okay.
If I'm like super out of shape, it's not worth trying.
Like if you're 30 pounds overweight, you're like, nah, I'm not gonna give that a go.
No. So, but yeah, the other thing is like, I mean, you might be able to get calves to grow by doing, calf isolated exercises, but just like, heavy stuff, heavy Olympic lifting. I feel like those things also help your calves grow too. So I guess Olympic lifting in general doesn't have to be heavy, but.
I was going to say, I think I learned this from Roberson back at Ball State, but he's like, if you want big calves, do squats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the calf still crosses the knee joint. Yeah. Now, I mean, your soleus may not benefit a whole lot from it, but I mean, bend your knee, you're going to work your calf. So,
right.
Man, there's so much I learned from Roberson in such a short time, and like he really did do an excellent job of summing everything up. And
Absolutely.
Just telling you what you absolutely needed to know. And like, I remember he told me, I probably was like junior. And he's like, look, all that really needs to happen for performance is you either need to lift something maximally while having the intent to move it as fast as you can, or move a submaximal object while still having the intent to move it as fast as you can. He's like, that's about it. Like, there's some other stuff in there, but if that makes up the bulk of your program, you're probably going to be headed in the right direction. And for some reason, everybody likes to overcomplicate everything. I don't get it.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I really appreciated from him was the way he programmed his pull-ups and chin-ups.
Mm-hmm.
How he would just give like a number.
Just give
32, 31, 25, whatever it is. Because a lot of people want to say, let's do 3 sets of 10. Cool. Have you seen the last 4 reps of each set? They're god-awful. They're half reps. They're not even good reps.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't even be counted.
Mm-hmm.
Just do as many as you can, perfect reps, then stop. Rest, and then go and do more. And it may only be, you may get 8 the first time, then 6, 5, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. But they're quality reps, which is exactly what you want. You don't want crap. Right. And I still do that all the time.
Yeah, I still keep that in there. Like with the guys that I'm working with, I'll put in, like, these guys can go for a while, and they can knock out a lot of body weight stuff. But you start adding, like, I look at training as a continuum. Like on this side, we've got like the absolute speed. On this side, we've got absolute strength. And these guys, they've got, a different continuum where it's absolute endurance, absolute strength, and they've got the endurance down. But like, I've started programming in some weighted chins, and I'll tell them, look, it's either 1 set of 30 sets of 1. I don't care. Just get them all knocked out. And exactly to your point, Bradley, so.
Yeah, I mean, your clientele there is going to be, their pull-ups and chin-ups should probably be amazing.
Man, there's some guys, like, they can hit their body weight, but you add some weight to them, and it just goes right down. So
it's a different stimulus they're not used to.
Yeah, and I look at it from an economy standpoint too. Is, man, if you want to, it's like running, for example. if you want to be more economical per stride, it would be in your best interest to be stronger, because you're going to put less energy into each stride to maintain the same speed. So if you get stronger, you can work easier at that pace. So to them, it makes sense, but I mean, it's just something nobody's ever told them before. So
yeah. Little off topic. Have they ever had a coach?
Yeah,
they've had area.
Yeah, they've had a few guys come through that have moved on and whatnot. But just different format, different coaching style. I see myself more as a teacher. I'm not the rah scream and yell kind of guy. I'm more of
me neither.
I'm going to go up and communicate with the guys and just say, hey, look, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to do. And granted, like if we're going for like a rep max, or like they need a little bump, like that's one thing. But I'm not going to scream and yell every single time, because they're going to become desensitized to that. They're just going to be like, yeah, some guy just yelling again. So it's a little bit.
They're already desensitized to that, and you actually probably are getting more because of the fact that they're used to being yelled at all the time.
Yeah, I think so.
Point.
I think that's a great point, man, because I've been in the room when some of these guys are getting chewed out for various things, and man, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to go over here and let you two work that out. I'm sure you don't need me here for this. So I think it's more of just, it's probably refreshing, to know like they have a question, and I'm not going to yell at them or scream at them for it or whatever.
You know what else though is like, so similar to, for sure your clientele, but like I'm taking 18 to 22-year-olds, and ideally they know how to work out the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. They may take a few years off after college, right? And like, oh man, I can't ever do a 6 a.m. But like your dudes, Travis, are going on and eventually going to be leaders ideally. Mm-hmm. And if they know how to do things correctly, one, they can take care of themselves, right? So they'll know how to lift when they get to their unit, and they'll know how to do those things when not telling them what they have to do. Mm-hmm. But then two, when they get the option, ideally they're doing it right for the people that they lead.
Yep.
So I think that teaching approach is hopefully going to work for really long-term gain.
Yeah, I've always been more of a principle-based guy, and I just think it's stupid when people get on and argue methods and methodology of how to train. It's like, oh my God, can't we just agree on like 5 to 10 principles? And if you're intelligent, the methods can be applied many, I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. But
they almost, even depending on the time of year, my methods may change.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we in season? Are we out of season? Is it max strength day? Are we just doing a recovery day? Is it, are we testing? Are we, just on some movement work? Every day can be a different method.
Yeah.
Well,
it depends on the team.
Right.
Right. So, you talk about some teams that just take training a little more seriously. Like by the time you've had them for a few years, you could probably play around with some really complex things if you thought that their training age was old enough and they could handle that. Whereas some teams who, they only train once or, let's say twice a week, the whole 4 years you're ever going to get them, and they take it, they get their work done, but that's about it. You can only do the basic stuff, So give me 1 second here.
Yeah, depending on my when I was at William Mary, whichever team I was working with may be different. Mm-hmm. There's the type of kid that they have. If I was training my women's gymnastics team,
yep.
I'm probably not going to scream and yell at them. That's not what they want or need. Mm-hmm. They were pretty self-motivated. They did a great job in the weight room. I have to try to encourage some people now and then, which heck, I want that too sometimes. Everybody does.
Right.
But they're going to be a lot different than our baseball team.
Yeah.
Who, wouldn't mind, getting in their face and yelling at them a little bit more. It's just each hour of the day may be different.
Every, man, it is the reason I was laughing, man, is because like every time I've worked with a baseball team, it's been like a nightmare. But when I'm because there's just something about that group, that personality style getting together and just like, oh my God, guys, can we focus for like just 45 minutes maybe? But when you work with them individually, totally different ball game,
Yeah, I mean, again, I've only worked with, about 6 different teams, but, from when I first started, I mean, the team got after it. They loved the weight room. They lifted hard, heavy, everybody, position guys, pitchers. But then, a couple years later, different team, it was hard to coach them because the skill, I don't want to say skill, that's the wrong word. The position players still loved to lift, but some of the pitchers were iffy about it. They didn't really want to.
Yeah.
So trying to coach them at the same time, you had to split them up because they were 2 different groups.
Right.
2 different needs, and their needs are different. We didn't program all the players the same because pitchers are different than the position guys. Mm-hmm. But we usually have them in the weight room at the same time. But then you almost had to get to a point where it's like, all right, let's split them up. One coach take one coach take the other, and so they're not even near each other. Mm-hmm. Because it was the energy was a lot different the latter years. They're still a great team, but just in the weight room, the chemistry that they had was just different.
Yeah,
it's just different.
Yeah, because you take like a wrestler or a hockey player or a lacrosse guy. I mean, they're just different. It's like each sport does have a different personality type. So it makes you wonder, like, all right, does this sport attract this personality type? Because like a wrestler is going to want you just to beat the crap out of them physically, and they're just going to want to be smoked to think that a workout has been effective, and you have to educate them. Say like, look, it doesn't take an absolute, just getting the crap kicked out of you to be an effective stimulus.
Fatigue and soreness is not a sign of a good workout.
Right.
It's a sign of a hard workout maybe, but not necessarily a good one. Yeah, when I was volunteering at Ohio State, I mean, they had every sport under the sun there. The wrestlers, you could throw whatever you wanted at them, and they just ate it up. Those guys, and lacrosse goalies and soccer and hockey goalies, man, those are a different breed of individuals.
Yep.
They were crazy. I mean, fun to work with. They worked hard.
Oh, sure.
But they're just
you
different
breeds. Someone else say, hey, that I'm defending this tiny box. I know it's going to hit me. That's fine.
Oh, the lacrosse goalies, when they come in, I mean, women, men, doesn't matter. They'd come into the weight room, bruises all over the body. I'm like, oh, my God. Mm-hmm. And they come in, they do their job, man. They come in and lift, and they got to be sore as crap, but they're still doing their job. Mm-hmm. They're fun to work with.
Flood, what was your favorite group to work with, man?
Let me think. I mean, here at Cameron or like in general?
Put them on the spot here.
Yeah, I'd say what about Cameron, and then what about Lax?
Here, I'd have to say softball because consistently they come in, they work hard. I don't have to tell them much. They focus on doing things correctly, and basically top down for the most part with everybody. And you always got to take freshmen and kind of like create, get them into the culture and stuff like that. But like for years, I've always had really good experiences with them. I would say female athletes in general, from my experience, have always listened significantly better than male athletes.
100%.
Absolutely.
They'll come in and they're like, dudes they'll bust it, like they'll work really hard, but like they think they know everything, even if like they started yesterday. Whereas for the most part, the females that I work with are like, hey, you tell me what I need to do, and they'll listen and they'll apply it. But some of them you have to say, hey, I think you can handle more weight, or like you can do this, and they just don't. I think they just don't know what they can do until they learn. Once they learn, though, then they're fantastic. But again, they always, I think, have feel like they want to be coached, whereas, like I said, a lot of male athletes don't necessarily have that same. They want to be good, but they aren't always willing to listen to the coaching that will get them there.
100% agree. Mm-hmm. I think the women athletes underestimate themselves.
Yeah.
And male athletes overestimate.
Yep.
Male athletes, they want to, we'll put up, let's do, 2 warm-up sets, and we're going to go a little heavier, 3 sets of 5, follow these weights on your sheet. And then on the last set, they go 20 pounds over their weight, and then they only get 3 reps instead of the 5 we're supposed to hit. It's like,
yep.
Well, you're not following the directions.
Or they're really ugly reps. You're like,
yeah,
come on, man.
It's not good. While on the women's side, they'll follow the reps, but then they'll be like, oh, that was pretty easy. I'm like, yeah, you're stronger than you think.
Yep.
So it's like you can push yourself.
Last night, Claire, my oldest daughter, who's 5, she was sitting on the couch with me, and we were watching on YouTube. It's a 5-minute video of nothing but deadlift pass outs. All right. So it's just a cut up. It's just a cut up of these guys. It's all 100% on the 5 minutes of video. It's all males. Not one female. Not one female. And the guys, this 5 minutes, man, garbage technique, too much weight, straining for too long. And Claire looked at me and she's like, are there any girls on here? And I'm like, not on this video. Because
yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought it was a lot easier to work with women athletes. They do listen, they do follow directions, but they do that. I think they underestimate their ability. They can handle a lot more than what they think. They're a lot stronger than they think they are. And once they find that ability, and it may take them a couple years, man, they're freaking awesome.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of things going on, but number one is the myth of like they're afraid of getting quote big and bulky, like we've all heard or whatever. The other thing that's going on is like society. They probably feel some societal pressure or like pressure from their friends, like, oh, what if I lift too much or whatever. Like there was a girl I was working with a few years ago. She was a sophomore in high school, and like I would coach her just like I would coach any other guy, and I would get after her just as much. Man, her squat got up to 255 for a back squat, and she was mainly doing Olympic style lifting. So then she looked at that and she's like, oh my God, I didn't think I could do that. Yeah, exactly. You're just as strong. You just need to, like, it starts up here, but anyway, man.
I think society pressures a huge influence on, women athletes, especially if they have a lot of friends who aren't in the athletic setting.
Right.
Because their friends don't understand, what their daily schedule is like, it's a grind. College athletics is a grind. And then obviously, you have celebrities and you have all the, TV and movies too, but I think it plays a very large role, in how they see athletics and how they see weightlifting.
Yep.
What's really interesting is, so I was an academic advisor in between my stints as a strength and conditioning coach. And so some of the stuff that I was learning in my master's degree was about identity. And, there's this really strong athletic identity. And the problem sometimes is like when your athletic career ends, like that's it, because you haven't developed anything else. Like in college, you haven't decided, okay, so yeah, I'm an athlete now, but like eventually I want to start a business or do whatever else. Or like, yeah, I'm an athlete, but I can also play an instrument or whatever else, right? With athletics being such a grind is that you tend to only tend to only hang out with your team more and more because they have the same schedule. And so like, you just understand, hey, they're the same ones who understand we get up at 6 a.m., we have to travel on this weekend and all this other stuff. The positive though to that is at least they understand the lifting. You know what I mean? And at least you got some friends, hopefully, who are like, oh no, I get that, we're in the weight room and we're lifting weights and stuff like that. But normally it's a problem because it's like, man, I really wish there's nothing wrong with being friends with who your teammates with, but it'd be nice for you to have some friends off the team as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't always happen. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, most of the teams I've worked with, I would agree with you that, some of their best friends are their teammates because they're spending so much time together. But every now and again, you have, I don't want to use the word like outcast, but it's just someone who's almost doesn't quite fit in with the team, but they have a lot of other friends outside of the team. And for whatever reason, I mean, the chemistry may not be there for them.
Yeah.
Which is sad because why can't you be both, man? Have some great friends on the team and have some great friends off the team. That's fine. I don't care. As long as they're positive influences on your life,
Right.
and everybody understands, I have to get up at 6 a.m. for a lift, 3 days a week, and I can't hang out with you tonight, but let's do something this night or let's grab lunch, whatever. As long as just make it work. That's fine.
Yeah. Man, I remember, you guys remember that article that came out a few years ago about Michael Phelps and his depression and all that stuff, talking about identity, because he didn't know anything outside of the pool, and he didn't, from what I read in that article, man, I mean, he didn't really do anything else. I mean, that was his entire focus. But it shows that to some degree, I don't know, it's weird because it's like if you want to be mega successful, you probably do have to be a little unbalanced to some degree, but not to the point where it's going to drive you to depression and things like that, but yeah, that's an interesting topic for sure.
William and Mary was an interesting school. I mean, they had a lot of great teams and everything, but when you think of, athletic powerhouses, William and Mary isn't usually one of them. That's not an insult to William and Mary at all, but they're a phenomenal academic school. And they are, those kids, except for maybe 2 or 3 of them who may get actually drafted into some sport, they are student athletes. Like academics is number one. Has been and will continue to be. And a lot of those kids, they do a lot of internships, over the summer, which from a strength and conditioning standpoint, I always didn't like because they were, too busy doing internships and some of their training went to the wayside. But when they graduated, they already had, internships. They probably already had jobs lined up. They kind of knew who they were and where they wanted to go. So they had a lot of success post-college. But if you were, working with some, Power 5, schools, football, basketball teams, they may be a lot different than where they have to be there all summer long. They don't have the opportunity to do those internships or even travel abroad or anything like that. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
So a couple things really interesting to get the perspective of some of the athletes of where I went to get my master's. So they kind of said, one, like you said, very time limited on certain things. But 2, some of them said, I came in and I was going to be an architecture major or I was going to be this major. And I got told that interferes with practice. You got to switch your. So you telling me you're going to pay for my school, but I can't get the degree I want. So what's even the point of giving me a degree? And yeah, it's going to help you get a job in something you don't want to do, So one of the benefits, I love that about William and Mary, but one of the other benefits here at Cameron and I think in Division II in general with that whole life in the balance is that most people aren't going to get drafted. Most people aren't going pro. Not everybody knows that. There's a lot of people who come in and are like, hey, so what's your career goal? Man, to play ball. Cool. What's your secondary plan? Or what's your parallel plan? What's the other option? So usually how I try and like to phrase that is like, okay, so whenever that ends, what's the next step? Or like, what else are you doing? But then if it's like, well, if it ends in the 4 years you're in college, or if it ends in 15 years, but what are you going to do after? And I know that's not always our job as strength coaches, but I do think that holistic development is, and I don't think it's bad to talk to them about career goals and mentoring them and stuff. And, hard work outside of just the weight room, is good, whether it's in the classroom or practice or in life, like grit. You're like, okay, so COVID happens. You're just going to give up, or we're going to find a way to get through it and, figure out how to keep going with life. So
I kind of think about it as, if I'm a strength coach and, my daughter's on the soccer team, what would I want that atmosphere to be like? And where she may not go pro. Let's say she's not going to. What type of coach, do I want working with my kid? And that's exactly who I want. Understand, you need to work hard in the weight room. You need to work hard on your field. Work hard for your teammates, your coach, for yourself. But make sure your coaches also realize that, your future is not in this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make sure we set them up for success off the field.
Yeah.
And I think you can accomplish that in the weight room too. Just teaching discipline and, accountability, and we at William & Mary, their schedules, they run a big school. So, certain classes were only offered at certain times. So scheduling the entire team to get in the weight room wasn't always a possibility. And I always tried to come at it as, okay, that's fine. They need to make sure they get their coursework in. They get their classes in that go to their degree. I'll try to do my best to work around that so they can still come into the weight room and get their workout in. It just may be at a different time from the rest of their team. That's just it. Student athletes.
Yep. Yeah, man. I remember, when I was at lacrosse with Flood, I was talking. Tell me if you remember this, Flood. We were talking to Kevin Schultz, who's the head strength coach there, and now he's at University of Wisconsin at Madison as their head Olympic guy. But anyway, we were talking to Kevin one day, and he was telling us about his experience at Carnegie Mellon, and he said Carnegie was the same way about athletes coming in, and they're like, "Look, man, I'm just here to lift and go to practice, and then I got a lot of studying to do." And basically, all the kids who are at Carnegie are there for academic reasons and purposes. So at least the way Kevin told it was it's not as competitive as some of the other places, because the academics truly do come first. But, which really doesn't sound that bad, because it's all about balance and making sure that they're surrounded by people who understand that balance and that holistic approach.
So what I think is really, really important, and I had to find this out when I came here, is knowing what the purpose of your institution is. If you're not a Power 5 school, you'll never be a Power 5 school. You don't have the resources to be a Power 5 school. If you're a William & Mary, be the best you can be for them. And if you want to move, because that's not the type of person you are, cool, move. But if you like Division III because you like kids who aren't on scholarship, listen, you just have to buy into me as much as you possibly can, and then cool. But not every school is the same, and I had to learn that at first. But I think once you get to that point, you figure out okay, what's the best I can do at this institution with the kids who end up coming here. Then hopefully you're more satisfied with your job than if you were trying to make it something different.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Just you financially don't have the resources to make it a Power 5 unless there's a couple billionaires that come along and suddenly decide to turn it into that. But
William & Mary was, they got great athletes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and they had, like I said, they had a lot of success, a lot of great teams. They won a lot of championships. I would like to win more, but who doesn't want that? But they also had the mindset of I came to William & Mary to play sports, but also to get a great degree and to set myself up for success in the future. That is not necessarily my sport.
See, that's where I think, schools like Ball State, Central Michigan, those places are unique because they're mid-majors, so we've got the D1 classification, but it's not quite a Power 5, so what happens in a situation like that? What kind of culture do the sport coaches create? What kind of culture is created from the, everything from the AD down, but anyway.
We had, a lot of different coaches who came through William & Mary. Some came from D3 schools, You know, I mean, William Mary is Division I. They're just FCS. You know, they're not the Power 5 schools or even the MAC, and they're a little smaller than that. But you know, they were still D1. We still competed against a ton of, you know, Virginia Techs, Dukes, North Carolinas, all those ACC schools. And, you know, some of those games we were competitive in, some of them we weren't. But, you know, depending on the head coach, his background, where they came from, D3, D1, were they an assistant at D1 and then came here, you know, I think that dictates a lot of the team's culture and where they want to go. You know, every team was different. That was one of the hardest parts for me as a college strength coach was you may want to create a culture for the weight room, but the culture for the weight room is going to be different per team because it starts with the head coach. If some of my expectations, the weight room are so high, but the coaches, they're like, you know what, we want them to lift, we want them to train, get stronger, but they didn't have a huge understanding of the weight room. They didn't understand all the benefits it could offer. So, you know, we go lift, but, you know, then send them up to practice.
Or,
okay,
you know, well, I want them to, like, have fun. Well, so I'm not saying we can't have fun, but, like, are you asking me to tone it down?
Yeah.
So it's more of a cakewalk, but they enjoy it more? Like, are we just trying to exercise here?
Yes.
Or are we trying to, like, train, you know, and truly, it's not your team.
Nope.
It's the head sport coach's team, right?
No matter how much they say it's your team or.
Yeah.
I've had that a lot. Do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, though, I mean, it comes down to what they want, you know, so.
Yep.
Talking about relationships with sport coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So, Flood, I got one for you.
Okay.
When Bradley, I can't remember if you had graduated because you're ahead of me by a year or two, right?
I graduated Ball State in 11.
Okay, I graduated in 10 with undergrad. So I think
mine was master's.
Yeah, you were finishing your master's stuff. So I think you will probably remember this story, but so Flood basically like Robe had men's basketball, and I can't remember what other teams, but anyway, like he would test a couple things, but one of them was deadlifting, and I think it was deadlifting and bench pressing if I remember right. And anyway, he was testing deadlifting, and this kid came in as a freshman and pulled like 405. And anyway, basketball coach came in, had everybody lined up, and he called over to Robe, and he's like, "Hey, come with me." And they went player by player. And the basketball coach goes, "All right, I want this guy to have bigger shoulders. I want this guy to have bigger calves. I want this guy to have a bigger chest." And Robe's sitting back. He's like, "What the hell, man? Like this dude just pulled 405 as a freshman. All right, like I don't give a shit about his chest size. Like nobody cares about that." But that just shows like the disconnect. I think it's gotten better every year, but it does show the disconnect that still to some degree exists with sport coaches thinking like, you know, these muscles, like I remember talking to a swim coach one time about how he wanted his swimmers to have stronger triceps so that they could, you know, finish I swear to God, he was saying like, so they could finish the stroke of the water and they need to have stronger triceps. I'm like,
not saying that's not practical, but you know, coaches, a lot of them, not all of them, think more of like muscles.
Yeah.
Where we tend to think more movement.
Yep.
Hopefully you do. And that's just my opinion. Hopefully you think more movement and, you know, chest size I don't give a crap what your chest size is, man. It's just, are you strong? Sure. Let's measure that.
Right.
I don't care how big it is.
You know, I think the other frustrating thing sometimes is sport coaches will say like, "Hey, I want them to be faster," or, you know, something. And you're like, okay. And in your head, you calculate how to get there, right? And you're like, okay, so I'm going to make them stronger, and then I'm going to get their rate of force development up, you know, and you're like figuring this out. You're just trying to develop them as a regular athlete, right? You're trying to make everybody faster and stronger and all this stuff. And so, but then they try and tell you how to do it. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. What you're telling me will not get the results you're asking for.
Yep.
So my favorite kind of sport coach is the one who says, listen, I don't really know a whole lot, but I just know it's important. So, and then the nice thing there is if you produce a faster, stronger athlete that is better on the field that they can use, yeah, cool, whatever. Yeah. I guess I feel like my ideal sport coach who knows the importance but doesn't get in your way and is like, yeah, just do what you need to.
Do what you do. I'm going to step out and let you do your thing. You know, like, man, I'm working my way through super training right now, and man, if I hit 5 pages a day and comprehend those 5 pages, I'm happy. I'm like really happy. But
mine was like 3 pages. I'm like, oh my God, I got to go back and reread this.
But man, I was reading the other day, and they were talking about, you know, different types of strength, you know, and how you're gonna. So first of all, everybody comes in and they're like, I want them to be stronger. It's like, all right, cool, but like, can you be a little more specific? Can you help me out here? Because there's athletes who are really good at displaying explosive strength, but other ones might be better at absolute strength, you know, and it just goes on and on and on. And I think a lot of people, the nicest sport coaches, I agree, are the ones who are like, look, do whatever you need to do. You recognize this and understand it better than I do. So have at it.
I don't mind having, you know, some input on, you know, don't be too, you know, necessarily in depth about it. Because I'll be honest, like when I was at William Mary, I had 6 or 7 teams, which in my opinion is way too much. And again, depending on what level you're at, Ryan, you may have, you know, 12 teams you're dealing with, you know, but, you know, I can't see them practice all the time. I can't watch them play all the time. I'm not seeing how well they're moving in their sport. So to have a coach's input is fine, but just don't tell me how to accomplish those results. Like in volleyball, if you have somebody up front, like a blocker, you know, middle blocker, they need to be able to jump higher. They need to get up quicker. Their reaction is too slow. Okay, cool. We can try to work on that. You know, or, you know, a baseball player is just, their swing is not quick enough. We want to be able to swing faster. Okay, we can work on that stuff. I may not be able to see that stuff on a daily basis, but they can. So that type of input's fine. Just let me do what I need to do to help that athlete improve.
Right. Like I think the best way you could achieve that would be going to a practice and having the sport coach point out what characteristics on the court or field they need improvement in. Now, if it's a skill thing, obviously that's their job, right? Like, this kid can't hit a ball. Well, sorry. That's your job, coach.
Recruit somebody who can.
So, yeah, right? So, you know, I need them better at this, you know, this attribute, right? Like, okay, let me, like you said, let me go back then and create the plan that's going to get them there. Because I understand the progression. I'm going to see them, and I'm not going to just say, oh, well, you know how I feel like baseball coaches are notorious for this, maybe other coaches too, but like not actually, luckily, not our baseball coach. Hey, so you see this major leaguers exercise? Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a very specific exercise for somebody who's been training for a very long time, and it's probably a very specific reason why they're doing that. Your freshman doesn't need to be doing, I mean, nor your senior usually, but you know, I think that's the most frustrating. But if the coach just says, hey, these are the things that I need improvement in, that's fine. As long as, you know, like you said, trust me to get them there. So I don't teach curveballs. So
you know,
let me do my job.
My favorite is that, oh shoot, what's that running back's name for the Saints?
Alvin Kamara. Oh yeah. God, don't get me started. Don't get me started, okay?
Dude, have you seen his training videos?
No, don't get me started. Yeah. I'm a Saints fan. I'm nervous for tonight. I'm a big Drew Brees fan. You know, have been since he was at Purdue. You know, I was was born in Lafayette. My dad went to Purdue, so I'm a big Purdue fan, but I can't stand to watch those videos.
So Flood, whoever's working with him, man, this dude is standing on like a Bosu ball, and they're he's got like vision blockers, and they're tossing different color sticks. You know, and
my God,
it's one of those things where you see it, and like you see an example of a top level dude, and hey, can you say hi to Ryan and Bradley? All right, you see,
hi.
You see a top level dude who's great anyway. It's probably not going to matter at that point what he's doing, because he's a freak. He's just a freak at the top level. And
my favorite was always, I worked with men's basketball at William & Mary, and I could always tell when LeBron James posted a video of him doing something, because all the kids came in the next day saying, "Hey man, let's go buy 10 Versa climbers. I think we need to be doing Versa climbing for conditioning 5 days a week." I'm like, you can't make 50% of your free throws, dude. Don't worry about it. Okay. Let's pump the brakes. Okay. Let's get up and down the floor 3 or 4 times without running out of breath. Okay.
The other thing too is like the stimulus in a sport is so specific that even like agility drills can never really mimic a sport. Like if you're going off of, let's say, a sound cue, and their sport really is, like softball, right? They're watching where the ball goes. They're not listening to somebody say, "All right, run now." It's like, we're really only training so much stuff. Like ultimately, I'm just trying to make a better athlete to then practice on the court or on the field. Like evading a tackle and all of that agility stuff. Like for the most part, I feel like that's just being coached to play football. Not those agility or not those balance things. That you're doing. But maybe I don't know. Maybe that's wrong.
No, I think you agree. Right. I think, our job as a strength and conditioning coach or sports performance coach or whatever you want to call us, is just to build the athletes, enhance their capabilities. But that's not developing the capabilities. That's just try to enhance them. The sport coach and the athlete, that's their job to actually build those capabilities, and improve on those. We're just trying to give them a much stronger foundation to work on.
Just trying to make better
build their capacity,
athletes,
trying to increase their capacity. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and make better overall athletes. Like I'll add in some stuff on just the front side on the warm ups, man, where it's things that are highly, going to require a lot of coordination, going to be a little awkward from time to time, and sometimes you'll do eyes closed, sometimes eyes open, sometimes single leg. Because if you can do those things in the warm up, and it's going to make you overall more coordinated, it's probably going to carry over to about everything else. Well, anyway. But hey, I don't want to keep you guys too long, man. So, Bradley, where are you at on social media, man? And how? What's a good way for people to get a hold of you?
I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just at Brookhart Performance. Email just brookhartperformance@gmail.com or brookhartperformance.com if you want to check that out. Pretty much everywhere. Try to be, provide as much content, quality content as possible. I'm not, trying to provide too much fluff for a lot of people, but, we've all seen the Alvin Kamara videos that people try to replicate, and it's like don't do those. Don't do those. You're going to get hurt. Let's start with the basics first. Most people can benefit from the basics. So
we're not going to see you on there doing anything like that?
No, because you'll probably see another picture of me in the hospital bed with a broken hip or something, and it's like, great. I'll be out of commission for a while.
Flood, what about you, man? Where are you at on social media, email? Do you want people to have any of that stuff, or are you just saying, "No, I'm gonna
go"? Not much. I think I had one Instagram post before Squattober started, and then now that's been going. But I mean, if you're welcome to see a bunch of Squattober and then probably a bunch of nothing, you can follow. I think it's this is how embarrassing it is. I had to look up what I'm at. I think it's rflood68. Email probably a better option. If you have any questions for a Division II college strength coach, you're welcome to email me at rflood@cameron.edu. But not as much presence as I should have. I love following stuff and watching it, and I think a lot of people put out a lot of good content. I don't really produce much, so.
All right. Well, hopefully,
there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of great coaches don't even have a Twitter account or Facebook, whatever.
Dude, the thing is, I have all 3 accounts, and I'm trying to get a YouTube channel rolling, and put out more content like this, where obviously it's not structured at all. It's just, hey, let's sit back and bullshit and learn a little bit from each other, hopefully, and hopefully some other people learn some things, and it'll start to grow and build from there. But yeah, man, I'd like to do this again sometime. Get another little round table discussion. So anyway, thanks for taking the time today, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Travis.
Sure.
All right, see you guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.